I think we've got a pretty interesting class here for you tonight, a lot of big hitters. And our Jimmy Root Service Award winner, we'll get to everybody. And we'll get to Ms. Nutt later, but when we started this thing, we wanted to find people who had basically given their lives to this school and this community. And sometimes that's not people we really hear a lot about. And I know Ms. Nutt probably didn't grab a lot of headlines, but Ms. Nutt gave her entire career, her life to this community and these students and cross country and track. So I'm trying to find people like Ms. Nutt and give them their due. And I hate it's too late for her to actually get this, but luckily her family members are here to accept that on her behalf. Okay, so with that, we'll start the actual ceremony. Coach McLeod, can we talk about the 96 team?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were good. Okay. I'm not sure how many we got. If you're on that 96 team, y'all stand up. Where are you? There we go. Got a couple. I don't know if y'all remember, this is Dave Rand and Jay. I don't know if it was by luck or by you got suckered into it, but he ended up being my assistant coach that year. I didn't have anybody else. And we won
That's how I got the job. You didn't have anybody else.
That's how I got this one. So, but you got Jeremy back there, who was an all-world left-handed pitcher, and Russell was our catcher, and did a great job. And I don't know, we had a crowd last night. It was great to see those guys again. They've all got old kids, and I'm officially old, but great team, great bunch of guys, and you got to be great to succeed like we did. And we had some fun. We shared some old stories last night. But, second year I was coaching, and then I had these guys fall into my lap, and somehow or another we managed to win the state championship. A lot of it was Plex and Alex and Travis Amy on the mound, and of course Dwayne. I didn't have anything to do with that, as God did, but it's a great team, and we appreciate all the support we got from maybe some of you were not here, but some of you were here. Malcolm was a bat boy, and Thomas was a bat boy. So it was a good time. Want me to sign this?
Yo, yeah.
And go out the rest of
Yeah,
the other three, four?
whoever's here.
All right, y'all come on up, guys. Let's sign this. Y'all can't write. I've had some guys who couldn't write. They can print, but they can't write. There you go, Coach. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long time. Jay's head football coach at Ridge Springs, Minetta now, and he's been a few other places, but he went the football route after you got through with baseball. Did I run you off after 1 year?
No, my wife told me I could only have one mistress.
Put mine down, too. Thank you, bro. You're not supposed to read this, are you? Good to see you.
Okay, our first inductee is the winner of the Jimmy Roof Service Award. I'm sure most everybody here remembers Miss Roof. Probably has a Miss Roof story or three. Yeah, she taught me and my dad keyboard. She was here for 56 years, no exaggeration. But when we got together to do the Hall of Fame, and we put together the first class, I wanted to put Miss Roof in, and she wasn't a coach and she wasn't a player, so it was kind of hard, but we put her in anyway because she deserves it. I mean, she definitely deserved to be first class Hall of Famer. And we decided that for people who contributed to the athletic department that weren't necessarily athletes or coaches, there needs to be a way to honor them, to show our appreciation for what they have done for us and our community. So with that, we started an annual Jimmy Roof Service Award in her name and her honor. She's still kicking, but she's not well enough to be here today. She came to the first 9 or so. She's not well enough to be here today. But I'm going to introduce Vicki Williams to talk about our Jimmy Roof Service Award winner.
Wow. I am so excited to introduce Dr. Ross. Where we're standing is his vision. When I think of Dr. Ross, I think of one word, and that's a man with a vision. When he came to Chapin High School as assistant principal, I'll never forget it. I walked in the office, He said, can I help you? He's young. You're young, then, Ross. He's young. And I said, yeah, and I was young. He said, wait a minute. What do you do? I said, I'm the varsity cheerleading coach. He says, oh yeah, I think I saw you because you're coming from Eau Claire anyway. He said, are y'all any good? And I said, I don't know, maybe some days or something. But that was the start of our friendship. And it has been a great friendship. He has been a mentor to me. He's been a mentor to Billy. He's a friend to our family. But he has built this. What you're sitting in, where you're sitting in, is part of Dr. Ross's vision. Another vision that Dr. Ross had that maybe some of you don't understand, is not only building this tremendous arena, and that guy up there is another vision, but he would sit out there in the hallway with his desk, and he would talk to all the kids. And his other vision was he wanted one heartbeat at Chapin High School. He wanted these kids to be part of a community. And he would have this clap, ready? And he could get 900 kids clapping to the same beat with the same heartbeat. And we have, those of you that have not, we have a section down there. Those of you that maybe were here, remember the gym that's behind me was where the cafeteria is now. And now we have a hallway called Heartbeat Hallway. And that was because of Dr. Ross. And these kids, he could come to a football game, he could stand in the middle of the student section, and he could yell, ready! And it was automatically. So not only did he build the structural part of the school and make the school what it is today in this community, one of the best, but he also reached out to these students and our athletes and the coaches and made everybody feel part of that one heartbeat. Dr. Ross played football at Duke, so that's kind of like his roots. But he's, and I remember one time, I wanted you to be the athletic director. I was like, come on, Ross, be that. No, I gotta do. So as you can see on the screen behind me, he was 2018 when he was named National Principal of the Year. Then we had to lose him for a few years. He had to go travel. Did you write a book? Write a book? He wrote a book. And then now he's our superintendent, which is so rightfully so. And I'm so thankful to be part of your journey and what all you've done to Chapin High School. Please welcome Dr. Akil Ross.
My goal not to extend this to 2 hours, but I do want to thank everyone for being here. What's a great opportunity to extend the history of Chapin, South Carolina. Arriving here from Eau Claire, if you know anything about Eau Claire High School, it's a little different. When I got here, one thing I realized is it's easy to determine the differences between people, but when you get around folks, it's really easy to see what's similar about us. The reality is all of us, when you put your hand over that heart to say the pledge, we all feel the same heartbeat. And that's what was central about Chapin High School. We wanted to bring that together. I remember getting here, Coach Muldrow was 2A going to 3A, and that was big. I was like, we got 3 A's now. And I remember going up to 800 students, and I don't know how we got them all in the gym for sports and everything, but this school is now at 1,623 students and growing. And the goal is, how do you keep the same heartbeat, the same community mindset? And so we were having lunch, Coach McLeod and I were just kind of going over the good old days and talking about, well, my good old days extend to 2005. His go back to the 80s. But one of the things that we all landed on is the notion of the Jimmy Roof Award. And I said, well, when you're following somebody's name, that's tough. Because everybody has a Jimmy Roof story. And I would be remiss if I can't tell mine before I sit down. How hard you work at a place, how much time you give, how much love you pour in. That's what I learned about Chapin. When the bell rang, people didn't leave. They did stuff after school. you could teach all day, Coach Grant, and then you were gonna be here till 9, 10 o'clock working with those students. That was just what you did here. You would coach 2 or 3 sports. You would coach around the clock. You would drive the buses, like everybody poured in. And it all seemed to go through one person, and that was Ms. Ruth. And so I knew as an assistant principal, and I'll make this very clear to our mayor emeritus as you film this, but sometimes the principal's not in charge of the school. I don't know if y'all know that secret or not. But sometimes the principal, we had a title, we're not in charge. And so you talk about somebody who was really the leader, who was really in charge, that was Ms. Jimmy Ruth. And so of keeping all this going, it does take resources. And one of those that we as principals and ADs look at is called gate receipts. Jimmy Ruth changed the notion statewide for gate receipts. After a big football game or basketball game, you go down to the AD as a principal and say, well, how is the gate? You just want to know because that's how you have to fund the rest of your sports. Well, Jimmy Ruth transformed that. I think it was at one of your games, Coach McLeod, where she was charging people who did not come through the gate. I never saw that before. Most times the gate receipt you have to pay before you enter the gate. Well, people were along the first baseline watching the game from the cars and the trucks, and Jimmy Ruth saw that and said, no, if you're going to watch this game, you're going to pay for this game. So people who weren't in the gate had to pay to watch the game. And I sat back and I said, now that's some Chapin stuff right there. And I learned from that. So now, because of her, we don't call it gate receipts, we call it parking lot receipts. If you're in the parking lot, you're going to pay to see this game. But it was just that type of dedication, that type of love. And I'm going to tell you, there's no greater love than she had for Chapin High School. It was my goal as principal is to make sure that that love flowed through every student who walked through these doors. That they understand that this was bigger than them. That they were representing a town, a strong town, when they came into these schools and walked these halls, that it was bigger than them. That they had to fight for the history of when this school was 2A, this close-knitness. They had to keep that together through going through 1,400 students, 1,600. When it went to 5A to support it, the whole expansion of that stadium there was not so much about a press box or extra seating. It was making sure that we could keep the amount of students that we brought to this town with that same small town feeling. That's our goal, that's our challenge ahead. And so by honoring people like Ms. Jimmy Ruth today, by keeping that example, I leave you with the words of a famous Nobel laureate, and his name is Rudyard Kipling, who said, no written word nor spoken plea can teach young minds who they should be. Nor all the books on all the shelves is who the people are themselves. I hope today, as we recognize the history of Chapin High School, we remember that who we are, it's not any programs, not any special technology or buildings, it's who the people are themselves. If we keep remembering who the people are, Chapin will always be the Chapin we remember. Thank you so much.
All right, next we're going to introduce Coach Jack LeGrand to induct Patsy Nutt, longtime coach and teacher here at Chapin. Coach LeGrand.
I don't like following him. There's no way to go on that road. Will it be down? Patsy Nutt was a great friend of mine. She passed away recently, not too long ago. And I met her the first time I met my first cross-country team. We had, I think it was 5 8th graders, 1 11th grader, and 1 12th grader. And one of those 8th graders is Johnny Nutt, so he's going to be up here in a second. And Patsy was out there. And Patsy, well, I'll give you a kind of a way to look at it before I go further. Her runners called her the Lord of Discipline because she didn't mess around. If Patsy would take charge. But she was great. She and I hit it off perfectly. She was a parent that worked all those years with me. After Johnny graduated, they decided with me having 40 or 50, it might be a good idea to have an assistant coach, and that was the first person I went to. Let's say she was fantastic, and I'm really happy that you're looking outside of just head coaches for this award, because she's deserving if anyone was. She would run the training anywhere from 3 to 8 miles and come in, and when we were coming up the hill back there, she would challenge every kid to try to beat her. And she was, I think, probably in her late 50s then, Johnny, maybe early 60s. And they better work hard to try to beat her coming up that hill. I call her, well, I don't go there. She was tough. And she treated every kid with respect. She also demanded the most out of every kid, and she had a great sense of humor. And so we would do things like we'd take a team up to Nantahala and do whitewater rafting. She's right in the middle of it. And she had no fears. She's just a wonderful, wonderful person, but she stood up for herself. She was a tough lady. And I think this is great that we're recognizing assistant coaches too, because there's a lot of work that they do, a lot that they give to the team. And I didn't consider her an assistant coach. I considered her a partner coach, because we talked about everything. She's probably a little tougher on them than I was. Well, not probably. She was tougher on them than I was. She got more out of them. But I'm really proud of this award for her. And Johnny Nutt, her son, is here to come.
Sorry for making you all have to deal with a little bit of awkwardness. I'm going to make you get ready to deal with. Patsy passed away this past December from end-stage Parkinson's. And my dad, her husband, died this past Monday. So it's been a big year. We moved here in the fall of '73. There were 30 kids in my grade when we first started here in Mill Elementary School. And when they built the new elementary school, when I started the 4th grade, that's when Patsy started back to public school teaching. She'd taken a while off when I was born. And by the 7th grade, well, there was only one English teacher in the 7th grade, so of course my mom was my 7th grade English teacher. Back then, there was no such thing as a middle school here. So I was really happy to get to the 8th grade and be away from my mom. And of course, they transferred her to the high school. Let's see. As an 8th grader, I was bound and determined that I was going to be on some sports team. So I got here and the question was, so what do we have in the fall? And the answer was, we got football and cross country. I'm very evidently not a football player. And I didn't know what cross country was, but I was going to do that. And I found out really fast that cross country was code for run till you puke. And the whole keep going part is what I really think drew my mom to it. Not just because of me, not just because of my dad, who was also a marathoner, but because of the metaphor of never give up. And you're on a team, but you're ultimately out there on your own. When you win, no one helps you do it. When you lost, there's no one else to share the blame. You're just going to have to saddle it yourself, do better the next time. In the classroom, she was a very strong believer in education, but not just education in general. She was a very strong believer in the egalitarian principles of a public school education. Because a public school, at its core, greets every student the same way every day. You're all the same. Your socioeconomic status, your ethnicity, or cultural heritage, they don't matter. You matter. And what you're going to do today and how you're going to build for your future is what matters. what she brought to the classroom, what she gave to me at my Chapin, and what she spent giving every single one of her athletes for decades after I'd long gone, was the idea that you need to have a deep and abiding respect for others. And it doesn't matter about where you came from. It matters about who you are now and who you're willing to become. That your humanity matters. And as a teacher in the classroom, she would tell me times that, you know, I get to split my time as a teacher between teaching AP and honors students, which is always nice because you get to spend a part of your day thinking and operating on a higher plane. But she also took great joy every single year in teaching remedial classes. She said, it's in there that I do work. That's why I'm a teacher. Because it's there that you can change one life at a time. And out on these dirt roads that I'm sure most of them are paved now, and around that oval that my understanding has long since quit coming up, really worn out, hard packed asphalt surface. And at one point it was red, and I understand it's now a beautiful blue color. She could continue that work on after the school day was done. And she got to have a more meaningful one-on-one time with those student athletes. And I know firsthand what that's like. And while she had a deep and abiding respect for all of the young men and women she worked with, she also was never one to tolerate foolishness. She would dress you down in a heartbeat. But she did it from a position of love. And when she was done letting you know that you messed up, she put that hand out and helped pick you up. Because it wasn't your job alone to become the best person you could be. We all do it, but to help others. She never quit being that kind of person. She was an optimist. In a world where it's really easy to quit being that way. And she carried that optimism through all the way to the end. And you're just going to have to take my word for that. Her end was not easy. She did not complain. And she continued taking care of others, literally until she was no longer physically able to do something. So I'd just like to finish with a little anecdote that is something I've put together over the years, because for the better part of the last 20 years, I've followed in her footsteps as a high school teacher myself. I teach at Hannah and Anderson. And there exists a belief system in a number of indigenous cultures, from both the old world and the new, that says we all die twice. The first death is the one that we're all familiar with. It's the moment the body takes that last breath. Heart gives us the last beat. But there's another one that comes many years later. And that's when the last living person who has a functional memory of you also passes. And it fills me with no ending amount of joy to know that long after I'm gone, there will still be people who are here in Chapin, or who still have Chapin in them and they're elsewhere, who will keep her alive until generations that come after me that I will never meet are here to be told about her. So for all of you who knew her well, any of you who she coached, any of those she coached with or taught with, or that you just knew her in passing, or that perhaps you've heard of her, thank you for carrying her with you. And I appreciate this time more than I can possibly imagine telling you. Thank you.
He's spreading the 3-point, whatever mom said his goes in there. And the baseball team would go trudging out there. Luke would come back and he'd go run it again and still beat half the baseball team. So he'll condition us. And Jeremy Mosley was also a center fielder. Congrats to him. And he said to tell y'all that there's going to be a Hall of Fame sale at Mosley's. So come on out. And of course, Dr. Ross, he supported me for a long time. Been a great friend. I saw what all he did here at the school. That's amazing, but what he does individually to people, he makes you feel special, and that's hard to do. But I appreciate everything you did, Your Honor, it's much deserved. Okay, Zach. His personality, you know, Zach was, first of all, he got put in a tough situation. He was a 7th grader or an 8th grader. He was on the JV team. And our senior catcher, for some crazy reason, decided he was going to run track. And he came and told me, he said, Coach, I want to run track. I said, why? And he said, I just want to run track. And I said, okay, buddy. I said, but you're going to regret this. And I've seen the kid several times, and every time he sees me, Coach, that was the biggest mistake. I said, I know, I was there. But anyway, so Zach was an 8th grader, and I went to Zach, and Zach at that time, he's all big and swole up now, but he was a little thing. He had a big puppy eyes, cute as he could be. And I walked up to him, and I said, Zach, he come running, yeah, Coach. I said, got some good news for you. I said, you're going to be the varsity catcher this year. And he just kind of, you know, eyes on me. I said, you can do it though, buddy. You're a great defensive catcher. And I said, we'll hit for you. So you don't have to worry about hitting. We'll hit for you. And he said, okay. And he did a great job. He handled it like a professional. And he went on to catch for us for the next 4 years. I think he had 5 years behind the dish. And he and I got really close over those 4 or 5 years. It's kind of almost like another son. But I remember most about Zach, and he can talk about this. We had some legendary battles with AC Florida. Nick, you remember that, the Evil Empire? There were several times we about come to blows, and that was just the coaches, one of the players. But he made our team better. He was a great leader, and he never was in a bad mood. I'd be raising Cain sometimes, and he'd just grin and say, Coach, it's going to be all right. Okay. And but my favorite story about Zach, and I'll turn this over, I'm talking more. We always end up going to Myrtle Beach in the playoffs. I guess we should win more games or whatever. But we were coming back from Myrtle Beach, Zach, you probably remember this, so we stopped at a rest area. And so all the kids get off and they go to the bathroom, and it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because we're, you know, and we're all tired, and we get on the bus, and Dr. Ross didn't hear this. I didn't do my head count like I should. I said, hey, is everybody here? And I went, yeah, they're here. So let's go. And so we start driving out the rest area, and the kid starts calling, stop, stop. And so I get up and try to look, and here comes Zach, looks like Forrest Gump. I don't know where we were. He thought he was going to be left in the middle of nowhere. So, but it was just good family, good people, and they did a lot for me, and as most of these guys did. They made me. I didn't do a whole lot for them. But at this time, I'm going to introduce our 5-year catcher, Zach Airlines. Be nice.
All right, guys. So, first off, I want to say thank you for everyone who supported me on this journey. This is honestly a little surreal for me, as I never thought this day would come. I heard about my grandfather being inducted in his high school Hall of Fame for football, watched my mom and her aunt get inducted in the Hall of Fame for basketball. So when I started playing baseball, never did I think I'd be here this day. So this is truly an honor. And I want to say, thank you for everyone, along the way. Thank you, Coach McLeod, Dr. Ross, everybody for, all the support and everything throughout the years. I'll start off by first thanking my mom and dad. You guys were there for me. Damn, I told myself I wasn't going to do this. All right, you guys were there for me from the very beginning. Countless hours, money, time, y'all, spent driving me to games, practices, tournaments, all while I was way too even young to understand kind of what was going on, the sacrifices y'all took for me, the hot long weekends in the sun with all of our USSSA days, endless packing of coolers, the snacks, just everything, all the catcher's gear that we had to lug around all of our days. Y'all always believed in me. A lot of times where in high school I didn't know what I was wanting to do. I kind of helped go about it in the short way, but I guess I always was told I was too small. You don't fill out the jersey good enough. You'll never be a D1 catcher, this and that. You two always stood next to me through all of it. Y'all really instilled a lot of courage in me, a lot of discipline in me. I can't thank y'all enough for everything y'all did for me. I know I'm up here, but between my brother and my sister too, y'all did a lot for us growing up. told myself I wasn't going to cry, and here I am. So thank y'all for everything. Seriously, I love y'all. I wouldn't be here without y'all in my life. My brother and my sister, want to thank y'all for always having my back as well and supporting me with the baseball journey. We spent a lot of hours, a lot of days at the ballparks on the weekends. I learned a lot from both of you. Not just about baseball, but a lot about life. You know, we weren't a perfect family growing up, but you know, I always had these two next to me. My parents always told us one thing: you have your blood and your last name that go with you to the grave. So I try to represent my family. I try to keep my brother and my sister next to me and in my thoughts with everything I do. So whether I was, having a tough game, I was, doing something in the backyard on the baseball team, trying to switch left-handed hitting. Y'all pushed me. Y'all kept competing with me. Steven, thank you for all the years of competing with me and pushing me. This journey was amazing with you two by my side, and I wouldn't want to thank y'all enough for that. To all the teammates, you guys were like a family, and I don't think I have anyone here that was a teammate of mine. Yes, you were. Yep, you were. Promise. Thank you. But yeah, to all the teammates, you guys are like family to me and always will be. I've learned a lot from each of you. This wasn't just about me, though. It was about the support. It was about the team, our community, that Dr. Ross has instilled in all of us. It was awesome. The competitions we had on the field, off the field. Little story, we were lifting or whatever one of the days, and we would always run after, and Max Doss, there was, running, and there was one time where coach was like, just run, just keep running, put your head down and keep running. You had everyone else that was kind of complaining, and I watched all these seniors ahead of me that, didn't want to run, didn't want to do this, but, I listened to coach, and I listened to Max Doss, and he just said, keep your head down and keep running. So all my teammates and everyone throughout the years, thank y'all for everything. This is where it's going to get tough. I was coached by a lot of coaches in my days. Played a lot of baseball, a lot of travel teams, but I had the privilege of being coached by one incredible person over all these years. Shaped me to kind of who I am on and off the field today. Coach McLeod, you had a long-lasting impact on my life. I know I moved up to DC. We probably, haven't connected in the past couple of years, and that's on me. But you really did, Coach. You had a big impact on my life. From the very first time I stepped on that field, Coach McLeod, he believed in me. He didn't just coach us as athletes. He treated us each like one of our own, like one of his own, like part of his family. I'll be the first to tell you that from that moment, I knew that there was something special between me and him. There's one moment that really sticks out with me, and I think it's going to sum up Coach McLeod pretty well. During when I got called up in 7th grade for playoffs, there was a playoff game, and I think we were far away, probably 2 hours away. I forget who we were playing, but we were in a tight spot. Coach McLeod asked, who can bunt, who can bunt? He said, Harry, can you come over here? Went over, talked to him, and he asked me, he's like, can you bunt? Can you move the runner over? And, most of you know how it goes under these pressure situations. Kind of hesitated. I said, I think so. He looked at me and said, well, that wasn't the answer I was looking for. Go sit back down on the bench. So we all had a good laugh about it afterwards, obviously. But it was in that moment that I knew he not only cared about us as athletes, but he believed in us as individuals. He believed in our abilities. He believed in the team. And yeah, just one of those moments that I'll always, kind of remember throughout the high school days. Coach McLeod just didn't teach us about sports. He taught us about life, about commitment, about confidence, which was a huge thing for me. And always striving to be the best versions of ourselves, no matter what situation you were in. Well, we did have some tough moments and some very tough games. One thing never changed about Coach, his support and his belief that we would always rise to the challenge. So Coach, thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't always believe in myself. Thank you for pushing me to be the person and the player I needed to be and I wanted to be. Thank you for treating us like family. You didn't just coach us in the game, you coached us in life. And I want to say thank you. I'm really proud to stand here and be a part of this 2025 Hall of Fame inductees. It's been an honor. I drive by this high school nowadays, and I honestly don't even recognize it. I mean, when I was here, I was telling stories last night. This beautiful stadium behind it during our days, we kind of went through the construction days, I called it. We had a trailer park back here. We had a trailer park in our front yard. So to see what this school has grown to hear 1,600 kids now are at this school when, I mean, we graduated with a class of 300 people, it's kind of surreal. So the fact that I'll be etched in this school forever is honestly surreal. Thank you to all the teachers throughout the days. Thank you, Dr. Ross, honestly, for a lot. And yeah, I want to end it on thank you to my mom, dad, my brother, and my sister. Y'all, we spent a lot of hours at the baseball fields, and thank y'all for everything.
Okay, we're going to bring Hall of Famer Jack LeGrand to come induct our next inductee, our honoree, our next Hall of Fame member. And I have to check, but I'm pretty sure this is the single most decorated person we put in the Hall of Fame as far as individual awards. So that's saying something, considering we've got 10 classes in. Jack LeGrand.
One time I was thinking about changing my name to Lovelace because I've taught or coached or worked for or worked with every Lovelace forever, but I kept LeGrand just in case. Before Luke came to run, I kept hearing about him from the elementary school. That you can't believe that what this kid's running in a mile, and I didn't believe it. I said, they've either got a short mile or got a bad timer. There's no kid that's in, what was it, the fifth and sixth grade, and running these mile times. I said, that's just crazy. So when Luke showed up for practice, it wasn't crazy. He could go. And I remember the first meet we had, Luke was tiny. He's not tiny now, but I mean, he was tiny, maybe 5 feet, Luke, or less, and then weighed about 70 pounds or less. And our meets, we would end up on the track, run 3 miles, come in. He had the first meet there. The season's hot. I think it was the end of August, and Luke comes in and he's right next to this guy that just looks like a stud, and they're side by side coming that last 100 meters in, and the guy looked like he was about 20, and he was big, strong, flying through, and Luke suddenly just threw his face to the left and just spewed out, threw up, and then turned right back in and went in and beat the guy. And so I said, Luke, it's not unusual for people to throw up towards the end of a race, but they usually walk over, throw up, get back on. He said, Coach, you got to throw and go. And so I had a good one then. I can't list all the things that Luke does. I'm not quite sure what he's going to say when he gets up here. But one big thing that he did was Foot Locker is sponsored by Nike. And they divide the country into divide the states into 4 different groups, and then they choose the top 40 in the country. Then they take them all to San Diego, fly them out there, nice hotel, give them uniforms and shoes and all that stuff. Luke qualified twice. There's only one other person in the state of South Carolina that's ever done that. But he qualified, and that made him the top 40 in the country as a junior and senior at the Foot Locker. So he set every class within like freshman, sophomore, and he had the record for everything. He had the overall record for everything. So he just was a pleasure to coach, but an incredible runner and athlete. He was also an incredible person because he had no ego. There was no bluster to him. He was a team person the whole way. Now, he would straighten them out if they weren't doing it right, and he would do that even starting at the 7th grade. But just a pleasure, the best runner that I've ever coached with one of the best families I've ever been associated with. So I'd like to present Luke Lovelace. He just had his second son to Marco last week.
Well, what an honor to be here today. I didn't write anything, but I shouldn't go over 5 minutes, so don't worry. When I think of kind of Chapin and kind of being inducted into this Hall of Fame, I really think about 3 things, and that's passion, character, and community. And honestly, I just feel blessed that I got to be in this community. I had 3 older siblings. My brother Spencer, who is here, was a 2-time soccer state champion and kicked on the football team. And my sister was a good runner in her own right. The only thing I didn't like about my sister being a runner was when she trained over the summer, you know, she had to be coaxed and she'd get new clothes and new things to be like, if you train over the summer, we'll get you this thing, right? And with me, it was just like, Luke, you're a competitive person, you know you're good, we'll get your new shoes. So, in terms of passion, it's weird to like hear all the stories because I feel like I was touched by so many people in this community. And I was shown what passion is. I saw Coach Taylor was here or is here. You know, I remember he was, I think, training for the Boston Marathon. And he was like, hey, do you think we could run together? I was like, sure. And so he would do long runs with me in the summer. And I think that is a unique thing about Chapin. He was not involved in my coaching, or I don't even think he taught me, but everybody kind of took all the kids under their wing. I mean, Coach Mims, I think, was my middle school PE teacher, and I remember him, you know, kind of pulling me aside when I was on varsity track and stuff, and, you know, kind of coaching me, like, you know, keep working hard, don't let all these kind of little accomplishments get to you. And then in terms of character, my brother Spencer was on the football team, and, you know, we would start the cross-country race and we'd run by the football practice field on our little Wednesday. They were kind of small meets, and Coach Muldrow would stop the practice and they would clap for the runners running through. And you know, they obviously were preparing for big games, and I just think that shows the character of the community. And also in terms of passion, Coach Rogers is here. He was my PE teacher. He used to have to pull me aside because I was very competitive, and so even in dodgeball, I did not discriminate, you know. If it was co-ed, I played the same amount of intensity as when it wasn't co-ed. So, and then Coach McLeod taught me how to drive. I drove 7 hours down here, so. But I also want to thank my parents. My mom especially was just such a strong believer in me, and was a great swimmer in her own right, and I think that's where I got my good cardiovascular system that could keep propelling me and throw and go, as Coach Grant says. So really just a great honor to be here and to be part of a Hall of Fame class, and it's just, in terms of community, I remember growing up and watching Corey Cato, you know, score touchdowns and thinking, you know, that's what I really wanted to be, was a football player, but I started running, I was pretty good, you know, I would throw up, but I guess I'd keep going, and I didn't have to run the 400 all the time, which is definitely the hardest event, so. It was just, and even I remember Jerry Mosley, my brother Ben, would talk about all his friends that were great athletes, and Thomas, and it was just a great community to be a part of, and I got to interact with Dr. Ross. He was a huge part of that community. Even as an assistant principal, he'd always say hello to everybody in the hallway and, you know, make you feel part of the community. So thank you so much. It's truly an honor, and thanks again.
next inductee is going to be Mr. Malcolm McLeod, and we're going to get his dad, Coach McLeod, back up here one more time and say a few words.
I'm sorry, y'all. Keep coming up there. But, it's kind of an honor to induct your own son into the Hall of Fame. But I've got two great sons. This one over here is a pretty good left-handed pitcher. And then I got a great wife and a mistress, and it's baseball. Me and Coach Mims and some of the rest of us, this is the first year in a long time, me and Coach Mims, we're gonna be lost without our mistress. I don't know what we're gonna do. But dear Susan's around the corner, so. But Malcolm, talking about childhood, I told Rita when we started having kids, I said, we're gonna have one if you have a boy. So she did good on the first try. And she had another one. I showed up at the hospital with a plastic bat and a ball. And I said, he'll be hitting. And when he sat up, when he got where he could sit up, I pulled the ball in my hand, and he hit it out. And then we kept going. He became a Dale Murphy fan back when Murph was playing. And we took him to a Braves game and got a little wooden bat about this big. And I got some plastic Easter eggs, and Fred's not here, so I got some of Fred's tape, and I taped those plastic Easter eggs up, and I throw them. And he'd go all over the place, and he'd hit them. He could hit them. And then he became a Cubs fan, and so in summertime, we'd sit around and watch the Cub games, Harry Carey, and that was, some time well spent. Thomas would be there with us too. And when he wasn't hitting baseballs, that's all the kid knew. He thought everybody had a baseball field in bat cage. He thought that's the way it was. But when he wasn't hitting, he would run around the house chasing ghosts. He was a big ghostbuster. He was busting ghosts and hitting baseballs. High school, he went through the Little League program and he did great. I missed a lot of the games because I was here. He started for us for 4 years. He had incredible stats. They're back there somewhere. Malcolm is a tough kid. He's got two kinds of toughness. He's got a quiet toughness and he's got a physical toughness like all these guys did. But his quiet toughness, first of all, he was a coach's son. I don't know, Coach Mims, we got a son-in-law, but Tony can tell you he lived rough because he took the brunt. He was, when I got mad team, he got it because I couldn't yell at them. He got it. And then of course, you had the parents out there saying, well, he's only playing because his dad's coaching, that kind of thing. And so he had to listen to that, and he let that didn't bother him. And I knew that people were saying that, so I expected him to be perfect. So when he messed up, he got it. If he'd have missed a steal sign, he wouldn't have home, okay? Corey, I would say, come on, man, you got to do better. But he would have been in big time trouble. So I expected him to be perfect because I didn't want parents saying, well, he's coach's son. And our games didn't end at the field. Did they really? After the game was over with, ride home, back home. I was still, me and him just going at it. She had the referee put us both in the corner sometimes, but it was, so it was really, really tough on him. I put a lot of pressure on him. He never said a word. He took it in stride. Probably too much pressure on him. Y'all know Coach Medlin had just retired from coaching. He coached for a long time. Everybody talked about how rough Coach Medlin was. And Malcolm went up there his freshman year and played with Coach Medlin. And somebody asked him one day, they said, how do you play for that guy? And he just looked at me and said, you ever play for him? So, kind of put it in perspective. So, he wasn't, Malcolm was not the fastest. He wasn't Corey Cato. He wasn't the best fielder. He had an average arm, but he did everything well. But what he was a hitter. And I'm a big believer, hitters are born, you can't make them. That's like, if we could make everybody 4-4, Corey, we would, right, Coach Muldrow? I don't know how you do that yet, run 4. But he was, Malcolm was a very cerebral hitter. He dissected pitchers, and he just didn't, go to, like a lot of guys in the dugout there, they're cutting up, then it's time for the bat. He studied the pitcher. He dissected, he picked if they were tipping pitches, he saw it. He looked at arm slots, very strategic. Look at pitch sequences. I know one time, I asked him, I said, it's a college game, I said, you the first 2 strikes. I mean, he said, Dad, you hit 3. And I said, yeah, you hit 3. He said, there wasn't the pitch I was looking for. So that's the way he attacked it. He went up there with a plan. He's probably, and I'm not just saying this because he's mine, and Tony Mills can back me up on this, probably the best breaking ball hitter we've ever had, and that's including Dwayne and everybody else. But he was a great breaking ball pitcher, hitter rather. His short, compact swing, he could stay longer than most people, and he had a great eye at the plate. Barry Chambers, who lives in Chapin, I think still, but Barry is a NCAA umpire. He umpires. He's done the College World Series a couple of times. He does regionals. He's done some of Malcolm's games. And Barry told me, he said, Malcolm's got the best eye at the plate than anybody I've ever seen, which I didn't understand because he's like 20 blind with his vision. And but I remember Barry telling me one time, he said, if I missed a pitch on Malcolm, he said, Malcolm wouldn't say a word. He said, he just kind of cocked his head back and looked at me and kind of grinned. He said, I missed it, Malcolm. He said he had the best eye that he'd ever seen. He only struck out 6 times his senior year in his stats, and he hit a legit 500. And I didn't bring his college stats, but he didn't strike out too many times when he was playing college ball. He was hard to strike out. Coach Medlin again one time told me, he says, you get Malcolm up, roll him out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, he'll get you 2 hits. And I believe that. Another quick story. He was playing at Lander. He transferred to Lander. He's playing at Lander. I think you're Francis Marion. You dive for a ball. You roll your thumb up on your glove. You break your thumb. We go to the emergency room. They said, it's got to have a pin in it. We had to go see Dr. Green. They put a pin in his thumb. He's out 4 weeks. Sitting, I think he worked a radar gun or something. So 4 weeks went by. He had to go back to see Dr. Green. They took the pin out. I didn't think nothing of it. I got home from a game or practice that night. He called me. He said, Dad, I played tonight. I said, you did what? He said, yeah. He said, Coach came by and saw me hitting off a tee. He went from the doctor's office back to the field. He was hitting off a tee, just holding the bat for the first time in 4 weeks. And so he said, I got to the game and I was in the lineup. And I said, what in God's name did you do? He said, well, the first time up, I looked at 3 and sat out. He said, next 2 times I got hits. And I said, well, there you go. And then, of course, little brother over here who's 6'3" now. Yeah, Thomas was about this big. Used to be, now he's 6'3". But Tom Malcolm's the only middle school coach we've ever had, and he's a phenomenal middle school coach. He's twice the coach that I have. But Thomas showed up one day, and he's come out of Aiken. He used to be left-handed stud pitcher from Aiken, USC Aiken. And he starts jogging. Malcolm, little big brother, you're an old man now. You can't boo-boo. So Malcolm didn't say a word. Malcolm said, all right. And he went over and he got somebody's help and he got a bat. He said, let's go. So we got USC Aiken catcher with Thomas. So he gets behind the plate, Thomas gets warmed up, he said, let's go 3 bats. You remember how it went. He got 3 bats. Yep. I think it was a ground out, a double, and a single. And he hadn't swung the bat all year. And Matt was put the bats in and he walked off. So, but it's physical toughness too. He's had mental toughness, he had physical toughness. Toughest thing for me and Rita was his junior year in spring break tournament. Trying to avoid a collision, 2 guys going for the ball. He turned the wrong way, he tore his ACL. We went and saw Fred, and Fred said, we can put a brace on it, he can try it. And the next week we had Mid-Carolina, Corey, you remember how those games were. And so he's playing with a brace on his leg. First time up, he singles, gets a hit. Next time he comes up, he singles, but as he singles, he twists on that leg and he goes down. And he crawled to first base, touching back. And I've been running out there. It's tough. He looked at me. He said, Dad, I can't go anymore. So that ended his junior year, but he came back his senior year and had a fantastic senior year. But that was tough. That was probably the toughest thing I had to experience in his baseball career. So he's turned out like Thomas. They're 2 fine dads, husbands. He has a badge and a gun now, so I'm not going to say anything anymore to him. He's in law enforcement. And I've seen him shoot, and he shoots really well. He doesn't miss. So without any further ado, my son, Malcolm McLeod.
We got to stop doing this. For those of you that weren't here a couple years ago, I had the honor of inducting Dad into this same Hall of Fame. So this is kind of a full circle moment for me. And to be honest with you, when Nick Herlandis told me earlier this spring that I was going to be inducted with this class, I really didn't know what to say. I was speechless. I mean, I just inducted Dad 2 years ago. I know all the other guys who've come before me. You know, Plex is here, Dwayne. I was like, I'm not getting in that. So I'm so humble and honored to be here today and have the opportunity to be recognized. And like Luke, I didn't really write anything down. So I don't really care for talking about myself a whole lot, but I did want to thank a few people, starting with my family, my mom, my dad. I mean, you guys have been there for us through it all. And if it weren't for you, Dad teaching me the game that I love and spending all that time with me, throwing balls to me or Easter eggs to your arm about to fall off. I really appreciate everything that y'all did. And Mom, I don't know if you ever missed a game. I know Dad missed some, but he couldn't help it. He had his own team to worry about. I don't think Mom ever missed a game. My little brother, Thomas, not really little brother anymore. He was always my best friend growing up, very supportive of me, and I appreciate all the competitive wiffle ball games we had in the yard that usually didn't end until we ended up in a fight, in which Dad had to come break up and send us to our room to cool off a little bit. Then we'd be out there playing again until we started fighting again. But that was just kind of the way that it went. My wife, Laura, who did not know me in high school, didn't know me as a player, but since I've been back and coaching here for the last 15, 16 years, she's been with me pretty much every step of the way. And she allows me to do that, and I love it, and she tolerates me in the spring. That's probably the way we'll put it. She tolerates me, so thank you for that. Thinking about what I was going to say today, I was looking at the class, and thought it was pretty cool because I kind of have a personal connection with just about everybody in this class, starting with Corey Cato. I mean, we pretty much grew up playing ball together. I think we were like on Team Pepsi together or something in coaching pitch, playing football and baseball. And he and I were lucky enough to win a couple state championships along the way. Zach Carolambis, when I started coaching here in 2010, Zach was our catcher, as Dad told you. I think that was maybe his second year as varsity catcher at that time. And then he proceeded to catch like 3 or 4 more years after that when I was coaching. So he was here for like almost a decade, it seemed like. But Zach was a great captain, great leader. We had made a lot of memories. Jeremy Mosley, who I have known for pretty much my whole life as well. We went to church together growing up. Jeremy was in high school, I was in middle school, and he used to be one of our youth leaders, and conduct Bible studies, and Jeremy is responsible for all of my wife's jewelry. So, for all of your jewelry needs, see Mosley's in Chapin. There's your second plug-in. And Luke, Luke's a little younger than me, but I did grow up with his 2 older brothers playing sports and going to school. And I do remember when I was coaching, seeing Luke out there running on the track, and that was a superhuman power, one that I was not blessed with. I mean, that guy was not jogging. It was a full board sprint for like 20 minutes. It was crazy. So I always found that super impressive. But, you know, I think it would be foolish of me to stand here and act like I'm here because of the things that I did myself. It's because of all the people in this room. It's because of this community. It's because of the coaches I've had, the teachers I've had, the teammates I've had, my family, and Miss Jimmy Roof, who I know we've talked about a lot. But when I was younger, me and Thomas were younger, Miss Roof was basically our caretaker after school when Dad was having football practice and stuff, till my mom could show up and pick us up. And that was basically a pure comedy hour of hearing her just harass people that came into the athletic office. You just stupid. You just stupid, that's all it is, just stupid. But I heard that once, I heard it a million times. But she was fantastic. I learned a lot from her about discipline, and but she didn't give me much of a choice. So. But, you know, I also failed to mention the 96 baseball team. I wasn't on that team, but like Dad said, I was always around this program. I was a bad boy, I guess is what you'd call it. And that's like a core memory for me, that state championship in 96. I'll never forget that. I mean, game 3 in Orangeburg with Bishop England, and that's the only game I've ever been to since that I've seen. Well, I was younger, so everything seemed bigger and more grand to me at the time. But it felt like the whole town was there at that game in Orangeburg, whether they were or not, but in my mind they were. And the last out was made, and I think the fans were on the field before the players got out of the dugout. I mean, there was fans in the dog pile. It was unbelievable. And so that always stuck with me, and I was like, I want one of those. And luckily for me, I was able to be a part of 2 teams that win state championships, and something I'll never forget. So I guess, you know, when you're surrounded by people who are outstanding, it pushes you to become the best version of yourself that you can be. And I've always had support here in Chapin when it comes to that. And I just want to thank the Hall of Fame committee, AJ and Justin. Call me Justin's weird. I got to call you Coach Cannon. You're always going to be Coach Cannon. When I was in middle school, on the B team or the C team or whatever it was back then, I was a quarterback. That was my very first offensive coordinator. So he'll always be Coach Cannon to me. And Nick Carolambis, of course. Appreciate everything that you do. But it's an honor and a privilege. Certainly glad to be standing here in front of y'all today. Chapin's a great place to be, and in my opinion, a better place to be from. Thanks.
Well, last but certainly not least, we got a new class of Hall of Famers, and I think, ironically, they've all chosen already Hall of Famers to induct. Miss Williams is in the Hall of Fame, Coach Muldrow, Coach Brand, Coach McLeod. I think everybody's already in the Hall of Fame. So I'm going to bring up future Hall of Famer Bob Taylor to induct Jeremy Mosley.
First of all, when I look out there and I see the inductees this year, congratulations, and their memories with many of you. Luke, the run, the McLeods, those afternoons watching the Cubs and picking out your first car. We were sitting, Malcolm, Coach McLeod always get the Consumer Reports magazine, and we were going through it, and they had the best cars. And I was like, Malcolm said, how about this car? He goes, nah, I don't think Daddy's gonna buy that one. I said, what about this one? He goes, nah, I don't think he'll get that one. He goes, he's probably not gonna buy anything more than $12,000. And Coach McLeod went, what? He said, look at that Mustang out there in the yard, boy. So really, it's really good. And the competitive spirit that all the inductees and the coaches and the Hall of Fame inductees throughout it, the competitive spirit you have, that's what makes this school so great, because I think everybody is striving to be the best that they can be because of you guys have set the path for us. So thank you. And as we get bigger, I mean, we have no fear of going 5A. If they make 6A, let's go 6A. All right? Is where we're ready to compete at any level. And tonight, and we've always had that kind of philosophy in wrestling. And tonight, we finally get to put a wrestler into the Hall of Fame. In 1980, a family moved down from Minnesota, and they said, we need a wrestling team. I've got 4 boys, and I've got to have something for them to do. We need a wrestling team. So they came down in 1980. The Shebleys came down in 1980. And I say this because we had a blue board up in our wrestling room. And the guys would always look at that history, and the Shebleys were on there. And the first year they were here, all 3 of them, Joe, Pat, and Mike, all won state championships. The team finished second in the state their first year of existence in 1980. The next year, Mike and Joe would go on to be the first 2-time state champions in wrestling history. A few years later, Joe Hodges, he'd win 2. We had James Derrick in the 90s. He would be a 2-time state champion. Go on to University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, led her 4 years. Then came Jason Hazard. Jason Hazard was our first 3-time state champion. In his senior year, he was the player of the year in wrestling. But there was always this player, always this wrestler that was in the background. And tonight's inductee, I remember his brother was wrestling on the team, and we would be at tournaments or we'd be at matches, and Jeremy would be around the match, and he would start wrestling. And he would just grab kids that were wrestling in the tournament, and Jeremy would grab them and start wrestling and beat most of them. And I was like, this guy's gonna be something. So I was talking to one of my friends. I said, I'm working on this speech for Jeremy's induction into the Hall of Fame. He goes, well, think of a funny story. I was like, he was pretty serious, man. I said, he was all work. I mean, there was nothing funny about it, because many athletes all have a funny story that they did in their 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years with me. Nothing was really funny about Jeremy. He was all business. But, so I was like, well, yeah, we just met last night at Smokehouse, and we started talking. I was like, yeah, I said, I've been watching this on YouTube. I've been watching this thing about these Blackman brothers. And he goes, yeah, I've been watching it too. And so these brothers, their father has created this kind of wrestling family where anybody that wants to come comes and wrestles these guys. And so I'm watching on YouTube, and they'll have like 12 guys in the room at a time, and we're talking about that, and I'm watching it one night. All of a sudden, my wife reaches over, and she like pats me on the back. Then she kind of grabs my leg, and I was like, whoa, and she goes, I'm looking for the remote. I can't hear the Bridgertons with your phone so loud. So I was like, but Jeremy and I were both sitting there, we were talking about those guys, and he had that same passion. He had a mat in his house. He got a mat, wrestled all the time, and he was watching his brother, and he tells a story about, he told his father, he said, I want to be a state champion like John. And his father said, well, son, you see how hard John works. He said, you're going to have to work that hard or harder to be a state champion. Well, he's going into his 9th grade year. Dear Larry and Jerry, they said, make our son a champion. So Jeremy and I packed up my old S10. It's probably the worst engine they ever put in the truck. I didn't have a cover on it, so I had some trash bags, and we covered our luggage up with trash bags, and we headed off for a 3-week journey of wrestling tournaments. You know, kids go home from wrestling camps. Wrestling is not fun. So Pee-wee wrestling, you have to get through the crying. They're gonna cry. But Jeremy, in those 3 weeks of 3-a-day trainings against nationally level kids from Ohio and Pennsylvania, and there were probably a lot of beatings that he didn't get around South Carolina, but he grew from. And then all that work paid off. And I truly believe that that work paid off, and what makes him a special inductee for our first wrestling inductee is the fact that not only did that work pay off in wrestling, it also paid off in baseball, it also paid off in football. As Jeremy went on to be a varsity letterman in baseball, he was pivotal on their 1998 state championship, or state runner-up finish. He lettered 4 years in football as a kicker. He went to the Merchant Marine Academy and lettered 4 years in baseball and football. And so I'm quite honored that he's going in, that he's a wrestler that's going to go in. He was a 3-time state champion in wrestling. He could have been a 4-time state champion. A freak accident, in the middle, he was out running, as he always did. Every morning, he had a 3-mile run that he had up his driveway and back down his driveway. Well, something happened, his cat got under his truck, and the truck rolled over his arm. So he was out for 4 weeks or something because his arm was really damaged. He came back, we had his stupid little Chapin duels, and he wrestled in that duel, and he was doing fine, and then the kid chops his arm, and he was out. The next year, so he had to miss his junior year. He was number 1 in the state. No doubt that he would have won the state that year. He came back his senior year, finished business, got his 3rd state championship, led us in 1997 and 98 to team state championships. He went on to the North-South All-Star Wrestling match. He finished his career with 123 wins and 8 losses. Amazing career Jeremy had. Amazing person. I asked him to come back to talk to our leader, and he said, I'd love to, Coach, love to. So he came in, and he spoke to the guys, and
I look around here and I look at all that these individuals have accomplished. And I can only think of one quote, and I'm going to butcher this because I didn't write it down. But Isaac Newton said, "If it seems that I look further, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants." So the only reasons why each one of us, that I'm speaking for everyone else, that each one of us got to the accomplishments we did was because of the people that came before us. Whether it was our parents, whether it was our siblings, whether it was our coaches, it was everyone. It was the community. So everyone that came before us, from all of these guys and everyone out here, I just want to thank you. Like I said, I'll make it very, very quick. I didn't write anything down either, so I'll make it. If I wrote it down, we would be here till 5:30. So, and I'm going to go backwards, really quick, backwards. Football, all right? Football, I got I don't know if it's the correct way of saying, but I got offered to play 4 years of varsity football. If anybody understands what that means, back when I played, you couldn't play your 7th and 8th grade year up there. So I went from B team straight to varsity. And the way I got to do that was not by my choosing, but Coach Eddie Muldrow actually called my dad and said, "Hey, we need a kicker." My dad came to me and said, "Congratulations, you're going to kick for the varsity next year." Now, Corey touched on something in his speech, and he said he looked around and everybody was tall, and he was 5'6". Well, Corey, I'm 5'6" now, and I'm in my mid-40s. So back when I was a freshman, I might have hit 5 foot. So, but for Coach McLeod, Coach Muldrow, he was an amazing coach. All the coaches, Gene Teal, Coach McLeod, Coach Taylor, when it came to football, and the other thing I'll say is this, and I'm going to jump around, is that I played 3 sports, like most of these guys, so I got coached by most of these coaches multiple times. So if you got underneath their skin, it wasn't like a season off, right? But I had the ability to go and kick, and I found out that, and I think I heard Corey was a kicker, and I know Stell Fox was a kicker, so I think we've got a thing going on with Hall of Famers that they're kickers as well as baseball players. But I got the ability, and I'll tell you the quick story of that. My first kicking experience was in W.C. Hawkins Stadium in the Sportsorama. We were playing at Irmo. I can't remember the people that we were playing, but I remember Dwayne Wise was my holder. And we've touched on Dwayne Wise, and I remember sitting there. I might have tinkled a little bit down my leg. I was nervous, B-team kicker. Get on there, and I remember Dwayne looked at me and he said, "These hands never failed your brother." My brother was a kicker. "They'll never fail you either." And he said, "I'm going to put it down, just kick it as hard as you can." And I had the ability and the gratefulness to say that I actually did make my first field goal. So that was great. But anyways, I got these coaches, again,